Welcome to the Make Me Better podcast. Hey everybody, I'm Misty Rooks, and this is the Make Me Better podcast. With me today is Lauren Wenger. Did I say that right?
You did.
Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you for having me.
I met Lauren through church, I don't know, several years ago maybe. We have some of the same friends, and I did not know that she had a story until I posted on Facebook that I was looking for people to share their stories, and she volunteered right away. And this is my first time to hear the whole thing. I know a little bit of what it's about. So thank you for volunteering to tell your story. And it may be a hard one to hear for some of you, but I believe that God will bless and that people will be encouraged through this story today. And you will realize the strength that you do have to get through things that you think are impossible. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll let you pick up wherever you want to pick up.
So I guess we can just start from the beginning. So I am one of 3 siblings. I'm the middle child. And growing up, my grandmother raised us. My mother was not a part of my life. She did not want us. My dad didn't want us either. He was a part of our life, but he made it very evident and very known that we ruined his life and that he just did not want us. And so all of my life as a child and until I met the Lord, mistake was my identity. And I remember thinking, if my own parents, my own mother, my own dad don't want me, who could ever want me? Who would ever want me? So I didn't have the best starting out, I guess, the support that you need as a child, to start out on the right foot. And so I just thought I carried the identity of mistake for most of my life. And it wasn't until I think it was 2012 I went to New Vision Church of God, and I'll never forget Pastor Michael. This is the first time I had ever been to that church. This is the first time I ever met Rhonda or Michael, and I remember him walking up to me and he said, "You're not a mistake," and that God had a purpose for my life.
Wow. And
I'll never forget that. And I remember just crying and just thinking that had to be from the Lord because I had never met any of them before. My friend had invited me, and this is a church that I still go to, that I've been there now for almost 11 years.
Wow.
So it was definitely a God moment. It was definitely something that the Lord knew I needed to hear. And that's what ultimately started my relation. I was raised in church. I was raised Church of Christ, though, which is completely different from Pentecostal.
Yeah.
My husband was raised Lutheran, which is also completely different from Pentecostal. So, we didn't have the relationship. We lacked the relationship with the Lord, which is what we have now. But, back to growing up though, we just didn't have the support that we needed as kids to, it was just, we were very poor. My grandma worked to take care of all 3 of us. And, she worked at Sam's. She was a food demoer, and she just did what she could. But, taking care of 3 kids it takes a lot. Even back then, it took a lot. And my dad never worked. He never really tried to even help or, take care of his own kids. He had his own issues. My mother did too. She's mentally ill. She's schizophrenic. My dad dealt with really bad clinical depression. And so a whole line of it was a mess. It was, just a whole, just chaotic and just crazy. And I just always remember thinking when I grew up, I wasn't going to live like that. Yeah. I just wasn't going to be that way. I was going to get married and have a good marriage and have kids and that knew that they were wanted.
Yeah.
And knew that they were loved. And I have that. The Lord has given me that. I have two precious baby boys that know that they're loved.
Yes.
I have a wonderful husband that I don't have to do anything to earn my love or earn his love. He just loves me. You know, I don't have to be useful. As a kid, I thought if I could just do things, if I could just be useful, if I could be good, maybe they'll want me.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll love me. I can just, you know, just like with the Lord, once I came to know him, you don't have to do anything to earn his love. He loves
That's
you.
right.
No
Yeah.
matter where you are, he loves you. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful there's just freedom in that.
It's not performance based.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of kids have that performance based sort of. If you do good in sports, then you get your parents' attention, or if you are a genius and you make, you know, the best grades, then you get your parents' attention. Or if you do something bad, then you get your parents' attention.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people grew up that way, but you guys have given your boys a beautiful home.
Thank you.
Beautiful family.
That was always, you know, just so important for me. And I knew, like, at 5 years old, if I ever had a little boy, his name was going to be Isaiah. I just always loved that name. It was my favorite book of the Bible. I loved Isaiah, and I just always knew my goal and my dream was to be a wife and a mother. I never really had huge, like, career goals. That's what I always, you know, wanted to be. And I'm so thankful the Lord gave me the desires of my heart. It wasn't an easy journey getting there, but obedience is better than sacrifice. And I've learned that. Let's see, I met Chris at Camping World. We both worked there when we were in our early 20s. And he wasn't saved when I first met him. And I remember we started dating, and the Lord told me to break up with him. And I didn't want to. I know that sounds crazy, but I just know that the Lord told me to. And I was like, okay, you know, I'm going to do it. And I did, and he ended up getting saved. He went to Winterfest with our church, and he had an encounter with the Lord that he had never had before.
Wow.
And he ended up giving his life to the Lord, and God really changed him and brought us back together as friends. And then we were friends, and then all of a sudden we started dating, and then after that we just knew, you know, I knew that was the one that God had for me. And so when he proposed to me, it was 2008. It was October of 2008 is when he proposed. So that same year, I lost my grandma that year, and she passed away on his birthday, on Chris's birthday, August 12th of 2018. And she raised me. She is a lot of the reason of why I'm who I am today. She loved the Lord. She was kind. She was sweet. She was just so loving. She loved us. She loved us so much. And I'm thankful that God let us have her. Because I don't know where, you know, we would have been, because she had a home. I left that out. We went to foster care. My mother left us in a hotel for 3 days. My brother was like an infant, and we didn't know if she was coming back. We didn't know, you know, what was going on. I remember one of the times she did come back, and I had my brother in a towel because he didn't have any clothes. So I had wrapped him in a towel so he could watch TV.
Oh, man.
And I had him sitting on the floor, and he was sitting in between, like, in my lap. And I was just, you know, just trying to take care of him. And my mother accused me of, like, messing with him, molesting him. I was 5. I had no idea what.
Yeah.
I remember she, like, beat me while I was asleep. I remember her just jumping on top of me and just hitting me in my head and just beating me. And I had no idea. I didn't even know what she was talking about. I was just trying to take care of him and make sure that he was, you know, he had what he needed. So she didn't come back for us. And from there we went to foster care. And we were there for, I think, 3-4 months. I'm not exactly sure how long. I can't remember. I was 7, my sister was 8, and my little brother was no, I was younger than that. I can't remember exactly how old I was, but Colin was 2, I think. or he might have been a little bit younger. When my grandma got custody of us, though, I was 7, my sister was 8, and then, let's see, we're 5 years apart. So he was,
2.
2,
Yeah.
I think, yeah. But she had a house and she had a job, and she had room for us. So she was able to, my dad did get custody of us, but it was because my grandma had everything that,
Mhm.
we needed in
Yeah.
order for him to. I'm thankful. Well, I wasn't at first. When I was younger, I never understood. I was like, why would my dad want us just to tell us that we ruined his life, just to tell us
Mhm.
how much of a mistake we were, just to tell us that we were fat and we needed to lose weight, and just awful things that you wouldn't
Mhm.
think, your parents would tell you. I never really understood that. But today I can say that I'm thankful that the Lord allowed everything to happen in my life that happened, because it made me who I am today. And
Mhm.
I've been able to through him, help so many people and share my testimony and share just even parts of it and say, hey, I've been there, but let me tell you what the Lord's done for me.
Right. Yeah, because I think, like, I would never know this, because there's 2 ways you can go.
Yeah.
When you grow up in a chaotic, traumatic childhood like
Mm-hmm.
you had, either you're gonna follow in those footsteps or you're gonna do the opposite.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of times people use it as an excuse, and, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's a reason, why you are the adult you are, but also it's the reason you're the adult that you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so there comes a point where it's like, okay, you can't use that anymore. Look
Mm-hmm.
at all these other people who had the same childhood as
Or
you
worse.
or worse, and
Yeah.
they chose,
Mm-hmm.
to still grow up, be an adult, be a decent person.
Yes.
Whether it involves God or not, but a lot of times it does, because
Mm-hmm.
that's how you learn to forgive.
Yeah.
So anyway, go ahead with
Yeah.
what's next.
Yeah, that is true. That's how you learn how to forgive. But back to 2018 when Chris proposed to me, so I'd lost my grandma in August, and then my dad passed away in September of the same year.
Mm.
And I remember him saying, he didn't want to wait because I had so many awful things happen that year. He wanted one good thing to happen to me. And he didn't know it at the time that he proposed, but my wedding ring has my grandma's birthstone in it.
Oh.
And I'll never forget Miss Glenda, who I go to church with, telling her that story. And she said, he didn't know, but God did.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. I was like, he's in the details. And he is. And
Uh-huh.
I'll never forget showing my ring to my aunt. And she said, honey, that's mother's birthstone. That my grandma was her mom. And she was like, that's her birthstone. And I didn't even realize. And I was
Oh.
like, wow, that's so awesome,
Yeah.
that God knew how special she was to me. And that even though I have her in my heart, but every time I look at that and I
Oh.
think, it was so sweet. And my husband has a spirit kind of like how she did. And he's just so patient and kind and sweet. And the Lord knew exactly who I needed because he knew all the things that we were going to go through once we got married.
Mhm.
I ended up losing my aunt. I think it was in maybe 2 years later. I got a phone call that she had had a massive heart attack and she passed away. And that was my dad's sister. And you know, she had mental illness too, but she was always, when we were kids, I remember she was always so good to us and so sweet and so kind. And it was when we got older that she really went through she had an awful childhood. And there was uh some inappropriate stuff that went on with her and an uncle, and it was just awful, and she never was able to heal from that, and that really dictated
Wow.
her adult life, and it broke my
Yeah.
heart to see that. And as I got older, I never understood as a kid, but as I got older I was like, there's something there, and I would try to minister to her and let her know that
Mhm.
the Lord can help her and she knew him, but it was different. It was, they didn't have, grown up in Church of Christ. It was the relationship that they kind of lacked. And, but so she ended up passing away. And then, I can't remember what year that was. I think it was I know my niece had already been born, so I think it was 2021, maybe, or it might have been 2019. I'm not sure. So then after that, Chris and I experienced a miscarriage. And, we had tried for a while to get pregnant, and it wasn't happening. And I was like, okay, well, when the timing is right, it will.
Mm-hmm.
And so one morning I woke up and I thought it was my period, but like the amount of blood, that it was just awful, and I didn't know what was going
Mm-hmm.
on. So I went ahead and went to work anyway because I thought, I'll be fine. And I was bleeding through everything, like onto where I was sitting down, like you could see. And I was like, okay, so
Oh,
I need
yeah.
to do something. So I called my husband and I was like, hey, something's up. Let's go to the emergency room
Mm-hmm.
and make sure everything's okay. And so we did. And they said, we think you're pregnant. And I was like, what? Because I wasn't having regular cycles. It was just very sporadic. It was just crazy. I don't have PCOS. They thought I did, but I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wasn't. I don't know if it was because I had a lot of stress or
Yeah.
just, I'm not sure. But I didn't have regular cycles, so I had no idea. But so they said, you're pregnant, but we think you're having a miscarriage.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, okay. So, I just kind of sat there and I was like, well, Lord, if like, we just pray that your will be done. And I had to go back there to do um, the ultrasound just so they could really see
Yeah.
what was going on. And I remember my husband, he was excited when they said that we were pregnant. He was like, I want to tell people. And I told him, I said, well, honey, just wait. Let's just
Mm-hmm.
wait. Because I knew, and I was like, let's just wait. So I went back there, and of course there wasn't a baby. And I had to come back in there and tell him. And it just broke my heart to see him so upset and hurt. And that was a really hard time in my life. I just feeling broken and just, I don't know, feeling like I had something that I always wanted and it was just taken from me. And to find out all in one day,
Mm-hmm.
all in a matter of, I think, 5 minutes, and just, and I heard over and over, well, with your first baby, it happens all the time. And I'm like, thanks. But that's not helpful,
Right. Right.
when, oh, well, at least you didn't know what it was, or at least you didn't get to see it on the screen.
Yeah.
All the things that people try to say that are just not helpful.
Right.
And there's no words. Only the
Mm-mm.
Lord could heal my heart. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a very dark and just hard time in my life. And I just, it was hard. And we just prayed and we just knew that. I remember after it happened that next Sunday morning, we were there singing on the praise team.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew that the Lord was going to bring us through and he was going to,
Mm-hmm.
bless us. And he did. And, July of 2022, we welcomed Isaiah. And he is our rainbow baby that I knew when we got pregnant, I knew he was a boy. I knew he was. And I had him at a time in my life that I didn't know how much I was going to need him. Because the next year, in September of 23, I lost my younger brother. And he was 26. It was a fentanyl overdose. And he was my baby. He was my first baby. I took care of him. I made sure he had the things he needed for school. He had all of his clothes that he liked, his school supplies. I tried to make sure he was doing his homework and that he was, just doing all the things he needed to do to be successful and to have a good life when he got older. And I'll never forget the phone call of saying, hey, we're so sorry, but Mr. Crane has passed away. And I remember throwing my phone and just, my husband had to pick it up and talk to the police, and I just screamed and just hit the ground and I had talked to him the day before, my little brother. I just talked to him.
Yeah.
And the next day, they found him. It was at like 2 a.m. He was by himself and they found him. And he just wasn't, he was already gone when I found him.
Mhm.
And I'd prayed for a long time that the Lord would do whatever it took to save my family. And, I'd prayed for my little brother to be freed from addiction and all that. And ultimately, and he was healed in a way different way than what I expected. And that was a hard pill to swallow.
Mhm.
When you pray for things, you have to be ready to accept how the Lord wants to do it.
Mhm.
Ultimately, he knows what's best. And
Yeah.
if you're not ready for it, it is hard. But I'm thankful how God unfolded everything in my life up until then, because if I didn't have Isaiah before I lost him, I had a reason to still get out of bed.
Mhm.
I had someone
Mhm.
depending on me that
Right.
I had to take care of, that I had to, be there for. And I'm thankful that I had him. And before my little brother passed away, God has always spoken to me through music. And the song Everything's Gonna Be All Right played constantly. Like, I would be in the car, and this is when I worked at Mountain View, and we lived in East Brainerd, we lived in Chattanooga, and it would play 4 and 5 times. And I know that sounds crazy, but every time I got in the car, it did, and I was like, "Okay, Lord, what are you about to take me through? Like, what are you trying to tell me? That everything's gonna be all right." I was like,
Yeah.
"I trust you, but I'm getting kinda scared,
Yeah.
like, I don't know what we're about to walk through. I know you're gonna be there, but whoo, I don't know, I'm not sure what it is." And then
Then did that song come back to
it
you?
did, yeah, and every time I start to think about my little brother and I start to miss him, it randomly comes on the radio. And it was the song that we played at his funeral. It was the last song that we played. And he got to come to church one last time at my church, and he went to the altar, and I know without a doubt that he gave his heart to the Lord. And that was the last time he ever set foot in our church. And it was a song we sang, Elevation Worships, Come to the Altar.
Mhm.
And not too long ago, it was a couple of Sundays ago, we sang that song. And man, the Lord just hit me with, I'm not one to really test or to just speak, and it's hard for me to be in front of people and just even doing this. And
Yeah.
the Lord just hit me with, hey, you got to say this. And I just felt the spirit of salvation, and I was testified about my brother, and I was like, it was this song, and you never know what's going to happen when you walk out those doors.
Mhm.
You never know when it's your last,
Right.
your last
Yeah.
chance. And I was like, if you don't know the Lord, like he's saying, come now. And another way that I can, I just want the Lord to use me. And I was so thankful that I was able to do that. And I'm just glad that he can use me. That's my prayer. Like, use me,
Mhm.
Lord, to just tell people of your goodness and what you've done in my life. And um, last year we bought our first home in March. We were able to buy it. We're homeowners now. I never thought I would be. We had 2 homes growing up that ended in foreclosure that we lost. We constantly moved around. We could never pay the bills.
Mhm.
And now to be a homeowner, I mean, that
Yeah.
is the Lord.
That's
And
awesome.
we have a beautiful, beautiful home. We welcomed our second baby in July of last year, and his name is Colin. He's named after my little brother, and he looks just like him. As a baby, I thought Isaiah did, but no, Colin looks just like him. And I so wanted him to be a girl. And that sounds awful, but
No, no, it doesn't.
I knew he was a girl, and I had his name picked out. And when I found out he was a boy, I was like, well, Lord, what am I going to do? I don't like any other names in the Bible. Like, Isaiah was it. And he's Isaiah Jacob, named after his dad. And I was like, there's no other name. Like, what am I going to name him? And I wanted to name him Colin, but I just didn't know if I'd be able to call him that. And I was like,
Mhm.
I never realized how hard it would be to call him that without my brother being here.
Mhm.
And we named him Colin John, and John is after my father-in-law, and we call him CJ. And I know that one day I'll be able to say it without
Yeah.
crying and without, being heartbroken. One day I'll get there, but grief it's a journey, and it's, something that you constantly are learning to work through,
Mhm.
and it's not
Mhm.
something where you just and you're fine. It takes a while,
Yeah.
and
It doesn't have an end
it
date, I
doesn't.
don't
No,
think.
there's no expiration. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, I wish it did, but it doesn't, and it's just something that you constantly have to give to the Lord and allow the Lord to help you.
Mhm.
Because if you don't, I mean, I don't see how people make it without him. I know I would
Oh,
not
yeah.
be sitting here today if it wasn't for him being on my side. He's brought me through so much, and just, you know, I felt unwanted and I felt like I was a mistake, to now knowing that I'm a child of God, and I've never felt so much love than I do right now by my husband and by my boys and my church community. And just, you know, he gave me beauty for my ashes when that's all I had to bring to him. And he gave me a beautiful life. And I'll remember I was at Redemption, and this was years ago. I'll never forget the lady telling me, I was at the altar and I was praying, and she said, "The Lord wants to give you a beautiful life." And he did. He gave me more than I could have ever dreamed of, ever imagined. And it didn't come without heartache. It didn't come without pain. But that's okay, because he gave me joy and he turned it around, and he gave me a garment of praise. And me and my husband sing on our worship team. He leads way more than I do. I just want to praise the Lord. One day I might lead a song, but
You can do it.
man, I get nervous. But I just want to praise him because he's been so good to me. I don't deserve it. He's been so good to me. And I remember as a child singing in my front yard. Me and my little brother would just sing songs that we knew at church, and we would just sing and we would praise the Lord. And I've always loved to sing. That's always been in me. And now, I get to do that. And Isaiah gets up there with his microphone, and he, wants to do that. And he'll sing songs that his daddy sings and that his mom sings. And he's being raised in such a better environment. Both of my boys are. And I'm so, so thankful for that. They're going to be such great men of God. And
Mhm.
I'm just so thankful that the Lord gave us what time we have with them to,
Yeah.
help make them into who he wants them to be.
Mhm.
I'm so thankful. Um, God's been so good to me.
You keep saying God's been so good. And earlier you said, that you just wanted God to use you and tell people about his goodness. And for anybody that's listening to this, um, I would imagine probably most people who have listened this far are believers, and they can identify with a lot of things that you said. But for people who doubt,
hmm
um, they're going to say something like, "How can you say that God is so good? Look at all the stuff that you said you went through as a child and then as an adult. It was loss after loss after loss.
hmm
So many family members, just one after another, and it's like it was never ending,
Yeah.
the loss that you suffered, and yet you're sitting here today saying, "I just want to tell people about the goodness of God."
Yeah.
Um, where does that come from? How can you say that? Because I know unbelievers would say, "You're ridiculous. Look at all the bad stuff that you just named, and you're still saying that God is good." So how can you sit here and say, "I've suffered through all these things, but God is still good"?
Um, because of my relationship with him, and knowing that no matter what we face, that he is with us until the very end.
Mhm.
And just reading my scriptures and knowing that he's with me no matter what.
Mhm.
Just as I was on my way here, and I was thinking, I was praying, and I was like, "Lord, I'm nervous. I need to know that you're here." And I turned on the radio, and it said the song singing is "God is with us." And I said, "Thank you, Lord. Thank you for being with
Yeah.
me." Um, just knowing that he's always there, that he never left me from the very beginning. My when I was an infant, they almost lost me. My mom gave me too much alcohol because I had colic. So, or
Oh,
something like
wow.
that. So I had a blood alcohol level too high for an infant, and I was in the hospital, and my parents had to stay at the Ronald McDonald House, and I was really sick, and I almost didn't make it. But God, He had a plan for my life from
Mhm.
the very beginning, and He kept me, and my life could have been so much different. I have a sister that her life turned out different. You know, she followed the road of addiction. My little brother, his life turned out different. He followed the road of addiction. Thankfully, you know, the Lord redeemed him, and He gave His
Mhm.
heart to him before He took him home.
Yeah.
And I know and I believe that God knew that he was ready, and He knew his heart was in the right place.
Mhm.
And even though he's not here, I know that one day when I get to heaven, he'll be there. And
Yeah.
for me, that's enough.
Yeah.
You know, I would so much rather him be there in his heart to have been in the right place and
Right.
the Lord just to take him home than him to continue
Right.
suffering here and,
Yeah.
you know, not having to worry about, am I going to get that phone call? Is it going to be the last time? You
Mhm.
know, I just,
You never know when God has extended somebody's life to give them a chance to say yes to Him.
that is right.
And I hear that so much with addiction,
Yes.
because we've been involved with Celebrate Recovery and stuff for years. So I heard a lot of stories about
Yeah.
how this should have killed me and this should have
Mm-hmm.
killed me and it didn't. And,
Yeah.
or, people that even came to church or CR and gave their life to the Lord and then a few days later
Yeah.
passed away. And it's like your perspective once you know God,
Yeah.
it changes because you could look at that as, well, they got saved and then they died anyway.
Yeah.
But no, you can look at it as they could have died lost and undone.
Mm-hmm.
But God
Yes.
gave them a few more days,
Mm-hmm.
maybe,
Yeah.
to make that choice
Yep.
before it was too late for them.
In 2020, I left this part out. You saying that brought this to my memory. My goodness. In 2020, my brother overdosed, and they brought him back to life. He died, and 3 times, and they brought him back. And God gave me 3 more years.
Yes,
He gave me 3 more years.
absolutely.
I'm so thankful that He gave me 3 more years.
Yeah.
You know, he was able to be there to see his nephew be born. You know, he gave him 3 more years. He didn't have to do
Mhm.
that. That was His
Right.
mercy. That could have been it.
Yes.
And knowing the condition of his heart, that could have been
Yes.
it. But no, He gave him another chance.
Mhm.
And, you know, we sing a song at church, God, I'm just grateful for you. And the chorus says, you gave me chance after chance after chance. And man, is that true?
Mhm.
He gives us chance after chance after chance. And He's a gentleman, though. He's not going to force Himself on you.
Absolutely.
But if you don't know Him, He's longing to know you. He loves you, and if you're away from Him, He wants you to come home. There's nothing you can do that would make Him not want you or not love you. You know, if you don't know Him, I pray that you get to know Him, because He loves you. And He wants you to have a good life, but He never promised that
Mhm.
it was going to be a walk through the tulips,
Yeah.
you know, because it's not.
We are not exempt.
Yes, just because we know Him doesn't mean that we live in a
That's right.
fantasy land. No, the
Right.
trials still come, but He's there
Yeah.
to bring us through and to help us.
Yeah. Y'all didn't know Lauren could preach. I didn't know that either. So now what I want to ask you is this. You suffered this childhood that no one would pick. You lose the most important person in your life, your grandmother.
Mhm.
That begins like a
Yeah.
several year stretch where you're losing all these people. You lose your baby, you lose your brother. How did going through all that make you better?
It made me look at life differently, and it made me want to make things count, and it made me want to make sure the people that I love and the people that I love that I don't know, if they don't know the Lord, that they
Mhm.
get to know the Lord, and that they know that we never know. We never know when it's our last day. It made me want to be a better mother, a better wife. It made me want to be a better friend. You know, it made me want to want to be better. And it made me want to let people know that God's still good, no matter what I've faced, and even from here on out, no matter what I face, my testimony, and I will always say that God is still good, because He is. He didn't have to die on a cross for me.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to give me a great husband. He didn't have to give me my beautiful boys. He chose to.
Yeah.
He chose to give me the desires of my heart,
Mm-hmm.
because He loves me. And it just made me better to just want people to know how good He is. And I'm thankful, and it took me a long time to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't just wake up one day. It was a
Yeah.
process to be like, whoa. Because for a while I was like, Lord, what are
Right.
we doing? Like, am I going to get through this? Like,
Yeah.
what is going on? But yeah, He brought me through. I didn't get through it, but He brought me through.
Yeah.
And if I had to, I'd do it all over again, because I wouldn't be who I am right now.
So I didn't even get to ask you that question. You went ahead and answered it. We would like to say that we're like superhumans and our faith doesn't waver, but sometimes we're weak.
Yes.
And we're thinking, and we might even talk to God and tell Him, I can't handle anything else. And He's like, I know you can't, but I can,
Mm-hmm.
so give it to me and I'll help you through this.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would love to say that we're unshakable. But the thing is,
You don't know until you get to something that shakes your faith.
You do not. And as long as our foundation is on Christ,
Mm-hmm.
the solid rock, even when we are shaken,
Yeah.
we will remain standing.
That's right. Yep.
So, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I don't think so.
You've said it all already. It was perfectly said. And I just want to thank you so much for spending your afternoon here with me today. I didn't know I was going to love this story so much and be so moved by it. I think that it is so real and relatable to so many people that probably grew up just like you, and you have a choice this way or that way. And you can see the evidence of God in Lauren's life, but you have to choose Him.
Yeah.
He's already chosen you, but you have to choose Him, and your life can be different, not free from trouble, but it can be different, and God can make you better too. So I just want to say thank you, Lauren, so much for being here today, and thank you all for listening to the Make Me Better podcast.